Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Exploring Sacred. Welcome to a beautiful brand new day. It's a gorgeous day here in the Enchanted Forest. And I hope it's beautiful wherever you happen to be. And I'm so happy that you're here with me this morning. Good morning, Sonia. Good morning, Jessica. It's good to have you with me this morning, ladies. Let's talk about the path of our soul and how it is that we know we're on the path. And sometimes that path changes and it can get a little bit tricky or feel a little bit tricky. But for those of us that have set upon the path of our soul, we're continuously listening to, and I'm always actually in a state of wonderment about where my soul leads me. So I thought that would be kind of fun to talk about this morning under the auspices of this magnificent brand new Leo moon. Hey, Katie Battle. New moon, new adventures. Leo, spotlight, strong, outspoken sometimes, shining. Whenever I think of the sign of Leo, I think of the Archangel Saint Uriel. That magnificent angel of light lighting the way, helping us to tread new paths and find our way to see clearly. Lots of things I think about when I think of Leo, and all of my friends and relatives that are born under the sign of Leo, including Lily. Happy birthday, Lily. She celebrated her birthday on the new moon yesterday. All right. So let me get my studio up and running here. Here we are. Good morning, Katie and Lori. It's good to have you with us this morning. The path of the soul. Sometimes the path of the soul can be different than the path that we're walking. And normally we can feel that when we're not in alignment with our soul's path. Every morning, part of my daily mantra is, please keep me on my true soul's path. Holy Mother, Divine Father, please guide me this day. Thank you for keeping me on my true soul's path. Thank you for the abundance in my life and for the abundance that continually flows into my life. I am grateful for the path of my soul. Every morning I recite that to myself, sometimes right out loud and sometimes just within my interior castle. But I like to begin the day acknowledging the fact that I have a soul, that it has an intelligence, and that it's always calling to me. And I think that we all have something of a compass within us that really helps to guide us or to let us know when we've fallen off what I call the red road and onto the black and blue road. Gabriel was tearing the stuffing out of his gingerbread person. So I had to take it away from him for the duration of the show. Oh my goodness. Hey, Linda Griezak. How are you down there in Sanibel Island, Florida, Lindy? It's good to have you with us this morning. So how do we know that we're on the path of our soul? That doesn't mean that everything is hunky-dory and smooth sailing. Let me just say that first and foremost. Following the path of your soul does not guarantee that everything is going to come up roses. It just doesn't. And anyone who tells you that, I believe, is misinformed. Because following the path of our soul sometimes gets really gritty. It gets challenging. And it's not always about niceness and sweetness and what I call the fluffy bunny stuff in spirituality. Those teachings and those teachers that try to tell us that if you're on your spiritual path, everything should be smoothly flowing. You'll never have another bump. There will never be another hairpin twist or turn. That is a big bunch of baloney. When you're on the path of the soul, you understand that you're on the path of your soul, and all of those things continue to happen. The hairpin twists and turns, the ups and the downs, the roller coaster moments in life, the high highs, the low lows, and then those wonderful places of in between, the plateaus. The times of smooth sailing. But when the smooth sailing isn't happening and we find ourselves in those rapids, hoping that we're not going to fall over the cliff, perhaps if we're following the path of our soul, maybe we have a bit of an advantage that says there's something greater going on. Something greater going on. I may not understand it in this moment, but something is happening. Everything happens for a reason. I believe that. Some people don't believe that. I believe in synchronicities. I believe that things do happen for a reason. We may not understand it in a given moment, but the soul knows, and sometimes we have to learn to trust the gut feeling, the feeling in our heart. We talked about that a little bit last week. Following that voice, that sense of things. Hey, Jocelyn. Good morning. Learning lessons is what I try to remember. Yeah, sometimes we're learning lessons. And I know for myself that when I'm in the middle of a big lesson, for myself, a big learning, I will often say, just if you could just make it as gentle as you possibly can, add a little bit of humor, that would be wonderful, because if I can look back and laugh at myself or some parts of this, that would be wonderful as well. The soul does have a sense of humor. Spirituality, in my mind anyway, should have a sense of humor. It shouldn't all be rigid and pious and devoid of character or laughter. Laughter belongs, in my mind, with spirit and soul. Sometimes it's laughter that gets us through, isn't it? I know it does for me. Sometimes I don't even know how it is that I'm inspired to laugh when I'm right in the middle of a sticky wicket, right in the middle of the thick of things. And I find myself laughing, and I don't know if I'm laughing out of exhaustion, out of understanding I'm in the middle of something absurd, or just laughing because I know that I know that I know. The soul has a wonderful intelligence, and our soul guides us. I believe, for myself, it's connected to the heart and mind of all of creation. It's part of the greater weave, our soul. And it's always being informed, and it's always informing. I believe it's our soul that is moved at magnificent pieces of music. It's moved at art that inspires us, brings us sometimes to tears or great joy. Sometimes our soul will react to something and we might say, I don't know why I reacted that way. I don't know why that piece of music brought me to tears. I don't know why I'm inspired by that piece of art. I don't know why I'm drawn to that person or to this group of teachings. I don't know why it is that I feel inspired by a sunrise or a sunset or being out in nature. I don't understand that. Sometimes it's the intelligence or the memory of soul that's inspiring us. For myself, I've learned with age that in those moments of inspiration, I've learned to just sit with it rather than analyze it, just to understand that maybe my soul is drawing me towards something. It's informing me. I'm informing me. It's not separate from me. Our soul, when we listen to it, will take us down paths that we thought perhaps we would never tread. Never tread. And that doesn't mean that we don't find ourselves treading into I call it the pucker brush. You know, that brush that has the sticky wicket kind of sort of things. We find ourselves there and we think, was I really listening to the voice of my soul? Because now I'm covered in burrs. It's like when I take Gabriel out into the enchanted forest. now that he's older and he's a bit slower, quite a bit slower. He's going to be 15 this year. When he wanders out, I just watch him go joyfully into the forest, and he will come out covered in burrs. And I have to brush the burrs out of him, and I have to get the little comb to get the burrs out of him. And the whole time that I'm brushing the burrs out of him, he might wince now and again, but I know that for him, walking through all of those patches of burrs, the joy is worth then sitting down and having them all plucked out of his fur, brushed out of his fur. And I think sometimes life is like that. We find ourselves going into places, and we can come out covered in an experience that we weren't intending, but an experience that's helped us to grow. Sometimes following the path of our soul can be a little bit tricky. What's soul? What's the voice of need, of ego, of want, of insecurity, of fear? Voice of the soul for me is a place of assuredness. It's a very still but very alive place for me. It's a place that I've learned to trust. It's a place that almost feels like a nest or a home that I can come and I can sit with and I can dialogue with and talk about the pucker brush. I can talk about falling off of the red road and ensconcing myself firmly on the black and blue road. I can talk about those times when I didn't listen to the voice of my soul and maybe feel regret or sadness. It feels like a safe place within me, where I can come and dialogue and talk about all of the experiences, the magnificent, joyful experiences, the synchronicities. Sometimes we have the most astounding synchronicities in our life, don't we? Where we say, you just can't make that shit up. You cannot make that up, what just happened right now. Have you ever had those moments that are so brilliant? Asking for a sign, and the sign comes along and it's just gigantic. Sometimes I will literally pull my car over to the side of the road into a parking lot when I get one of those signs when I'm out and about, and just sit with the magnificence of it. Sometimes it makes me laugh, sometimes it makes me cry, sometimes I'm just in a state of wonderment when I receive a sign that's so clear and big. Good morning, Del Marie. Hey, Rob. Hey, Tara. I love asking for signs. These days, a lot of people will write off receiving a sign to algorithms. Before, people would just say, oh, there's no such thing as a coincidence. There's just, those things happen. Or everything is a coincidence. Coincidental, I should say. I don't believe in coincidences. I don't. I think that synchronicities, supposed coincidences, can be wonderful signs. Yes, algorithms do exist. Sometimes a cow is just a cow. And I think that our soul, deep down, can feel the difference. And sometimes when somebody receives a sign for the very first time, it can be the voice of fear that says that was just the algorithm between Instagram and Facebook and Pandora. It was just an algorithm, and maybe it was. But usually our soul will creep in and say, now you know that was not an algorithm. Hello from the other side. Hello. How are you? I'm thinking of you today, too. Practicality in spirituality is always a good thing, but it can take over the joy of soul and spirit as well. Sometimes maybe we just need to allow for the fact that following the path of our soul means that we also receive signs and wonders. Whether we're in a time of immense bliss and joyfulness, or we're walking through the dark night of the soul, walking with somebody else through their dark night of the soul. I think one of the most valuable tools in walking the path of our soul is the attitude of gratitude. Really good boundaries, being awake and aware, having a sense of childlike wonder. I think those are wonderful tools when we're walking the path of the soul. For me, when I'm walking the path of my soul, and I notice myself being drawn in a certain direction, maybe it's with my work, maybe it's with Gathering Thunder Foundation, and the soul is receiving information, and sometimes it's a trickle-down effect that I may not catch on to readily or very easily, but I'll notice a pattern of things coming up, a pattern of conversation, a pattern maybe of questions from my clients or my students or those that Gathering Thunder Foundation serves. I begin to notice patterns, and I believe it's the voice of my soul or the intelligence of my soul that says, Dana or Blue Thunder Woman, pay attention to the patterns, to the signs right now that are happening on the weave. Pay attention, become watchful, awake, and aware. Don't discount them. And before long, I allow myself to be drawn into those patterns, to investigate them, the possibilities. I think that I've been prepped really to do that, because when you grow up in a military household, from one army base to the next army base to the next army base and a few more army bases, you know that change is part of life. So I grew up with change from the moment of my birth, always in a state of flux or a state of change. And so sometimes people will say to me, well, you know, Dee, change is part of your life. So for you, change is a little bit easier, and I can accept that is true. Change can be much easier for me than it is for my son, Dane, who grew up kind of sort of in the same place. He's not much for change. For me, change has always been a constant. And the intelligence of change, or the voice of my soul in that change, and just as I said that, he's calling me on my phone. Dane and I have a very, very close soul relationship, he and I. He's going through a time of change right now. The newspaper in Grand Rapids is folding. His work as the lead mechanic for that gigantic printing press, newspaper printing press, is going away October 4th. And so he is out and about interviewing. Lots of people would like to bring him on board. Their company, their establishment. And he says to me, Mom, I just don't know where to go. I don't know what to do. There's so much. And I'll say to him, and I do say to him, son, listen to the voice of your soul. When you interview with people, have an intelligent conversation, but also listen to your soul. And you'll know in your gut. And the soul, when we're on our soul's path, doesn't always give us the answer that our brain wants. And he always laughs when I tell him that. The path of the soul doesn't always feed into what the brain wants, what the brain deems as the most beneficial, or the easiest, or the most glamorous. Sometimes our soul says, yep, that seems like it's going to be the perfect fit, but I'm telling you, you need to do something a little uncomfortable here. You need to take the leap of faith. Don't you just hate it when the soul tells you that? Time for a leap of faith. Della is saying, heeding my father's words, I attempt to be aware of my intuition or soul all the time. Yeah, that intuition. Rob is saying, journalism is going online. Yep. Hey, Carla Joe. The soul wins out in the end. Yeah, it's just an experience that we're having here. Following the voice of our soul makes it way more interesting. Doesn't make it easier. Makes it interesting. It makes it interesting because what I've discovered in my 57 years is that when I listen to the voice of my soul, I may find myself in some uncomfortable positions. I never for a moment thought I would ever find myself speaking before 300, 400, 500 people in an auditorium. I never in a million years thought that I would be doing a whole lot of the things that I've done and that I know that I will be doing. But the beauty of it is that when I let my soul challenge my brain or challenge me, the ego me, and I don't think ego is always such a bad word, but you know what I'm saying, that part of me. When I let my soul lead me and I say to myself, gut tells me to go left, brain is saying go right, but there's something about that left-hand path that's drawing me. I have met the most astonishing people. I've been to the most astonishing, beautiful places. I've been to some pretty painful places, and I've met some pretty painful people as well. The soul, the voice of my soul leads me on adventure. And sometimes it's an outward adventure. Yes, I will travel abroad and I'll do all of those kind of things. But sometimes the adventure that it leads me on is completely and utterly an inside job. It has everything to do with my interior castle. Visiting the inner corridors. I had one of those dreams last night. I dreamed it all night long. Those dreams where you find yourself inside a house or a building. To me, when I dream about a house or a building, I know even while I'm in the dream that I'm visiting my own soul. I am literally within the interior castle, going from room to room, corridor to corridor, broom closet to broom closet, peeking in, dusting some things off, maybe opening a door a tiny crack and shutting it because I'm not ready to go there yet. Oh, last night was one of those. A lot of magic in my dreams under the Leo new moon last night. Lots of wonderful things levitating, lots of magic going on. And when I woke up this morning and I was thinking about my dream and the magic, I call it magic anyway. I just like that word magic. I think magic has a lot of connotations, going right down to the root of the word. But I like the word magic. For me, it means wonderment. It means extraordinary, magical. My dreams were magical. So sometimes our soul, when we're not paying attention during our daytime, or when our body is awake, I should say, when we are in our other dream time, when our body is sleeping, the soul will have conversation with us. And what I've noticed over the years about the dreams of going inside my interior castle, I remember in my 20s, early 20s, late 20s, I would have dreams about forgetting my combination for my locker at junior high or high school. I always hoped that Kelly Spencer would also remember my locker combo in junior high and high school, right? And then I would have nightmares about it. And then I finally figured out, at least for me, the combination to my locker and why I was so fearful and worried I wasn't going to remember it. For me, it came down to the fear of not remembering my soul, not remembering my interior castle and how to get there, how to get into it, how to unlock it. Fearful that I would lose the combination or the technique or be taken somewhere that didn't include my soul. I learned a long time ago to watch for the signs, the synchronicities, the wonders, my intuition. I knew that very well, even in junior high. And that was the bond, actually, that brought me and Kelly Spencer together. The very first day of school, I was always the new kid. I was the new kid that year, too. And there was something about her big blue eyes and really long blonde Stevie Nicks hair. And the way she dressed like Stevie Nicks, just really cool. As cool as you could be in 7th grade. We were drawn to each other. And immediately we began talking about our intuition. Immediately. It was what, 1976 or 75, whenever. Yeah, right around then. And I knew in that moment, even as a little girl, that that was going to be a soul friendship. And so 45 years later, we're still celebrating that friendship. Our soul leads us to people, to places, to things, experiences, outward, inward. And a lot of people perhaps don't take the time to just sit with their soul, just to sit within themselves, to bring their attention to their heart center and just feel that and breathe into it and be present with that interior light, little light of mine. I always say that's a really great way to begin, just sitting for a couple of minutes and breathing into your heart center, breathing into your solar plexus in the beginning, being mindful, awake and aware, being grateful. So why does our soul also bring us to places that aren't very comfortable? Well, there's a lot of learning, a lot of wisdom that comes from the uncomfortable places. I think it's where we learn boundaries, where we learn to have boundaries with ourselves, where we learn to have boundaries with others. It's where we learn compassion and empathy. It's where we learn what we're made of, our own strength, our own courage. I think that's part of the purpose of the dark night of the soul. That's what I call it, the dark night. Why does our soul lead us down that path? Why can't it always be? Well, it can be. You know, if we read the teachings of many of the saints, one of my favorite saints is Teresa of Avila, who wrote the book concerning the interior castle. And when I study other saints like her from many traditions, we discover that even when their soul is having an experience that we may term as dark or troubling or testing, they're still able to find the light. They're able to say to themselves, I know that I am in this situation for a greater purpose. And I know that even though I am walking straight through the depths of hell, there's a higher purpose for it, and I am not alone. This is a time of my soul's growth. What does that mean anyway? Soul's growth. I thought to myself the first time I started reading those things in my late 20s and early 30s, really studying the saints. What does that mean, the growth of the soul? Well, for me, I think that's kind of a misnomer, at least for me. For me, what that means, the growth of the soul, is my growth, my personal growth, in understanding that I have a soul. And it's my personal growth and understanding of what a soul is, where it comes from, that maybe there's something greater going on here, that the world really is full of magic and wonder, that Creator really is love and light. And for me, that's my soul's growth. I think for me, it's understanding how amazing spirit and soul is. I don't think my soul really can grow much more, but my awareness of my soul and what that means and what it encompasses and how it's connected to every living thing, and that every living thing is always speaking, informing, seen and unseen. For me, that's what soul growth means. Maybe there's a better way of putting that. Growing in awareness of soul for my growth and understanding. So sometimes we do tread where angels, or we do find ourselves where angels fear to tread. I have anyway. Right, Tara Rietberg. Boy, Tara's been with me. It's a pretty plucky places around the world. Del Marie. How do we combat the negative energy of our souls? As maturity comes to some of us and we know right from wrong, some choose to dwell in the negative. Funny, as I'm typing my question, you are touching on my question. Some choose to dwell in the negative. I think that people who dwell in the negative, there's some feed for them. There's something that they're receiving when they dwell in the negative. Some people, no matter whether things are coming up roses, no matter how much love is available to them, the addiction to negativity, just like any addiction, there's a feed that's filling a void. And some people can be addicted to negative experiences, to negativity, to the dark arts, to darkness, in all of its forms, the negative. That's a great question, Del Marie. Some people will dwell in the negativity because it fills a void. Other people will rush to their aid. And I think that, we all know people who live in negativity. Boy, the last time I said to somebody, literally, I can't come to your home anymore because the moment that I walk in, I am drowning in the negativity of your home. What do you mean by that? My soul cannot be in the negativity of your home. Sometimes we find that when we become really well acquainted with our own soul, with our spirit, we cannot be in another person's negativity. We can only make short visits into their darkness, into their whatever it is. And when we put our foot down and we say, my soul cannot exist, it drowns, it cannot breathe in your illness, in your addiction. You know what I'm talking about when I say that. Oh my goodness, let me just say, I said that and I held to it. I cannot come to your home. I cannot, when I drive up to your driveway, there's already dread in my soul. Because I know that when I step into your smoke-filled home, with negativity playing on your television and alcohol flowing from morning, noon, and night, my soul hurts. I cannot do it. I love you, but I cannot be there. That started really quite something in my life. You all know that feeling of dread. Oh no, my God, I have to go there. That person sucks the life out of me. That situation sucks the joy out of me. That's your soul saying. And why do people continue on with that? Well, they're either happy in that, and that's okay, but we don't have to participate. And then there are places we know we're going and our soul is joyful. Just in the anticipation, our joy is apparent. We can feel it. If something is assaulting our soul, we need to pay attention to that. Because if our soul is feeling assaulted, it begins to embed itself in our physical body and we become sick. I always used to say to my dad, the Sarge, oh, he was crabby. I love the guy. But, we called him the Sarge for a reason. And, oh, my God, he could be crabby. And I used to say, you're going to live to be 150 and be a crabby old man. And the rest of us are going to be 6 feet under because of your crabbiness. Right? And he would just laugh. Sometimes the orneriest people outlive everybody who loved them. Yeah, drowning. Yeah, we can drown in social media and negativity. Yes. That's right, Sonia. How do we get out of our own negativity? Find out what the void is. What's missing? Sometimes it takes soul retrieval work. Sometimes we've let go of pieces of our soul. Sometimes we hand over pieces of our soul to other people, to situations. We give ourselves away. And I believe sometimes our soul can become fragmented. And we need to have soul retrieval. We need to retrieve those parts of our soul. And sometimes I believe that's what's revealed in my dreams anyway, about being inside a home or a building with all of those rooms. Some that over the years, some rooms that I was afraid to go into years ago. Now I can open up those doors in my dream time and open up the curtains and roll up the shades and let the sun in. And there are times in those dreams where I find myself having enough courage to go into a certain room or two and literally to dust away those cobwebs in my dream. And I know I'm being brave in my dream. And I know that once I dust away those cobwebs and I open up the curtains and roll up the shades, that in my physical life, I'm going to see the manifestation of that. That I'm ready to dust off the cobwebs of whatever has been, whatever was neglected, maybe what was taken out of that room that created that void, that empty room covered in cobwebs. Paying attention to our soul means sometimes learning to walk away that which assaults our soul, including people or situations. We do not have to die so another person can live in their negativity. And I've watched people die at the altar of somebody else's darkness. Hey, Laura Smith. Dell, I'm glad that you're headed back out that way too. Carla Jo is saying, I worked with a man who, when he walked into a room, the lights would dim. Yes. Yes. It's interesting when we talk about the darker places and the negative places, spirit lives in those corridors. And we're always having to be mindful. Hey, Laura, it's so good to have you here with us. Laura always says that, before we come here, we have a shopping cart. The shopping cart of life, and we go through the grocery store of experiences that we wish to have in our lives. We toss it in the grocery cart. And then while we're here, we experience all those things that we put in the grocery cart. And sometimes we think to ourselves, what was I thinking when I put that in my grocery cart? What was I thinking when I put that in my grocery cart? Well, hopefully we were thinking that maybe we would have an experience that the soul would never forget, because I believe that our soul is also joyous in, maybe not joyous, but maybe also inquisitive about what human life entails. The good, the bad, the ugly. I remember not too long ago, somebody said to me, what on earth were you thinking that when you were born, you would be taken away from your biological mother, and then you would be sold to another couple? What were you thinking? I don't know what I was thinking. And then I did some soul work down in Decatur, Georgia with my really wonderful friend, David Cad Sturken. And I asked the question of spirit, what was I thinking? What was I thinking that I would want to have that experience? To be sold right out of the chute and then be sold again. That was a hell of a thing to put in the grocery cart. Who does that? And the answer that I received from my ancestors and, via the voice of my soul was that I would be the last of my ancestors to ever be sold at birth and taken away. And I agreed to break that pattern of being sold. And I thought, oh, well, okay, if I'm here to break that pattern, so be it. Sometimes those darkened corridors that we find ourselves in with ourselves or with others is because we're being asked to break patterns. And that's not always easy. I'm here to break a pattern. Ugh. Jocelyn is saying, as I've gotten older, I feel the draining of negative people and social media with all the politician crap. I distance myself from the negative ones and kind of don't even see them. When they're near me, I block them. There you go. What is sad is that I truly believe that there are souls that choose to be evil and to experience evil. I agree. Yeah. And it's okay to block people, to unfriend them, to unfollow them. That's okay. That's okay. Because if our soul becomes sick, we have to be very mindful of whether or not we're feeding our soul or draining our soul with people, with experiences. And yeah, I believe that, there are some beings on this earth plane that part of their plan is to be the embodiment of evil, of darkness. I do believe that. And I've learned for myself that I have a choice, and not everybody is going to like my choice of having boundaries. And usually the people that don't like my choice of having boundaries are the ones that throw the biggest hissy fits. Call me every name in the book. While they're drowning in their own whatever they're drowning in. And that's a soul in need. The void is very big. When we pay attention to the voice of our soul and we nurture our soul, we are comprehended as being strong people. You ever notice that? People who are usually identified as being a strong man or a strong woman. Why is that? Well, usually people who are perceived as a strong man or a strong woman, they usually have some pretty good boundaries. They've done a lot of soul work, or their soul has taken them through the dark night of the soul. Those are the people I want to talk to. Those are the people that I want to be with, the ones that have had some experiences with life and death. And they're perceived as strong. And sometimes when you're perceived as being a strong soul, people will put their garbage on your front doorstep. They will air their dirty laundry on your laundry line. Ever have that happen? All of you strong souls? I've lived a lifetime of that. And with age, you finally learn that another person's garbage or dirty laundry on your front stoop, because it's all your fault for being so strong, or you're strong enough you can handle it, whatever it happens to be, I've learned to hand it back to them. My soul has become wise enough to say to somebody, literally, you left your trash on my front stoop. It's your trash to sort through. It's your dirty laundry to sort through. And I can love you from a distance while you're sorting through it, but I'm not going to do it for you. I have enough of my own laundry, and I take out my own trash. The path of the soul, following the path of a soul, leads us to a place that some people perceive as maybe a lack of empathy or a lack of compassion. But I believe that our soul leads us along a path to a place that we call wisdom, that says that if we continue to do somebody else's laundry, we continue to take out their garbage and claim it all as our own to do for them, they never learn how to do it for themselves. They never get the privilege of it. That's a conversation I've had with my kids since they were little. You're such a mean mom. Now both of them are happy that I was a mean mom. And by mean, I didn't enable my children to become adult children. Didn't happen. The path of the soul, I think, makes us become wise, and not out of a lack of compassion, but understanding that even when I have said to somebody, this is not my dirty laundry to launder, this is yours, sort through it piece by piece, and I'll love you from over here while you're doing it. In fact, we become so empathic that it's painful for us knowing that they're sorting through their laundry. Because maybe we've had to sort that same laundry. Maybe we've had to take out that same sort of trash, and it breaks our heart to know that they're having to do it for themselves now too. Ever have that experience where you sit back and you know that what they're going through is painful, and you can love them from where you are, but you cannot bear the weight of their laundry. You cannot sort through it. You cannot wash it, fold it, put it away. And you can cry for them as they're sorting through it. The soul does cry. The soul is very empathic, compassionate. I think that following the path of my soul has actually made me, in my humanness, softer, not harder. Because when I do hand a bag of garbage back to somebody that they've left on my doorstep, I do cry for them. I do pray for them. I do light a candle for them. I will hand them the card that says, call Nicole Fix or Terry Ruel. Let's get on this. Lots of experience with that I've had. It becomes part of our Buddha nature, the Buddha Hote, with his big old belly and a smile on his face. That big old Buddha Hote belly represents compassion. And all of those times that the Buddha's soul has led him into places that were harsh, that were bitter, that were dark, but ultimately led him through and to the light of understanding, of wisdom, of knowledge, and to the understanding that this lifetime really is very short. But when we experience something ourselves, then we can have compassion for another. We can have empathy for another. If we know loss, if we've experienced loss, then we can have empathy for somebody who's experiencing loss. And if we've had joy, wonderment, our soul allows us to experience all of it, if we choose. Not easy. Not easy. It's magical sometimes. It's really magical at other times. It's blissful in moments. The soul remembers that we're never, ever alone. And it's continuously informing us. And whether we are temporarily blinded by addiction, a situation, relationship, an experience, illness, and when we can take a moment to listen to our soul and ask the question, why am I going through this? I remember asking my soul that question. Remember Tara in 2005 when I had that left brain stroke? And Tara, she's so sweet. She probably think, why did I even meet this woman? Right? Tara literally would bring dinners to me and the kids. I was a single mom and just had a left brain stroke, walking with a walker and a cane, not even able to write my own name. And Tara would bring meals for me and the kids. She'd pop them in the oven in the morning, tell, Dane or me when to take it out. And I remember asking my soul, what on earth? Why is this happening? Why is this happening? Somebody give me an answer. And it wasn't very long after that I was having a conversation with a shaman, a sacred person, who said to me, a lot of people who walk the spiritual path, in order for their soul to speak more clearly, for them to see spirit more clearly, to hear spirit more clearly will have a left brain stroke. So what you're experiencing is not uncommon for somebody such as yourself. It can be part of the path. I thought, oh my goodness, boy, this path, it can be a doozy, isn't it? So let's try to find the beauty in this moment. Well, the beauty in the moment was that I have a dear friend who's been my dear friend for 30-some years, who managed to cook and help me with the kids. My dear friend Darlene, who would take me grocery shopping. She'd grocery shop while I had my walker. Right, there's the blessing. And my son looked at me, he was 15, and he said, Ma, I never would have thought that at 15 I would be tying my mom's shoes and walking her around the neighborhood like a dog. I said, well, geez, hon. As he was tying my shoes, and there was a harness that he would have to strap around me in order to walk me so I could learn to walk again. He was 15. He had better things to do at 15. And he looked at me as he was tying my shoes and he said, Mom, why do you think this happened to us? And I looked at him and I said, I don't know, Dane. Why do you think that this happened to us? Why do you think this is happening to you or for you? And he looked at me as only Dane could look at me, those big brown eyes. And he said, I think, Mom, the reason that this is happening is so that I'll become a better man. And that was one of those moments where my soul took a really deep breath. And I looked at him and I said, Dane, if me having a left brain stroke and you having to walk me around the neighborhood like a dog in this harness so that I can learn to walk again makes you a better man and you're okay with that, it's worth this experience. And he looked at me and he said, yep, Mom, I agree. If this is going to make me a better man, it's worth it. His soul knew at 15 something bigger was going on. And he and I have talked about that. And he's a wonderful man. And just as I'm saying that, sparrowhawk is out there just chirping it up in the back. Maybe you can hear him. Right? Walking the path of our soul is not for the faint of heart. As Linda Grisiak would say, it's not for ninnies. Not for the faint of heart. It was a very profound moment. Yeah. And some people do have an addiction to helping others. Absolutely, Del Marie. There's no doubt. I have said that there are people who are addicted to addicts. Some people are addicted to addiction, or people who are addicted. Yeah. I will say that. There are people who are addicted to addicts. And, I'm addicted to coffee. Some would say maybe I'm addicted to soul and spirit. I'll take that. I'm definitely addicted to Java. And yes, some people are addicted to helping others. It fills a need within them. Some people are addicted to addicts because whatever that happens to be for them. Yeah. Our soul is leading us on quite a journey in our humanness, isn't it, everyone? When we allow our soul to inform our humanness, when we allow our soul to be awake and aware within us, in our humanness, when we can see in that moment, just like Dane saw, he knew, he felt, awake and aware, knowing our soul is not separate from us, it's part of us, we are part of it, to give it its eyes, its ears, its heart, its strength, while we're walking this human journey. That's where the magic happens, even in the dark corridors. Because Albus Dumbledore is right. If somebody remembers to turn on the light, the darkness goes away. And sometimes being in the dark is exactly where we need to be. It's where we grow. It's where the new shoots, the inspiration, happen. It's where the roots begin to feel their way in the soil. Great conversation, everybody, this morning. Thank you. Well, thank you for that, Katie. It takes a village. And I've always said when it comes to my kids and being a single mom, all of those years, it took a village to raise those two. Linda's saying, knowing that my handling of life experiences may break ancestral patterns in my soul's source of strength, courage, and compassion, and excitement. Yes. Breaking patterns. Ancestral patterns for those in our soul family who continue to come here. Breaking those patterns, ending them, starting new ones. Unweaving and reweaving. That is not for the faint of heart. It's an adventure. Sometimes we find ourselves in Mordor, and sometimes we find ourselves in the Shire, and everywhere in between. With that, everybody, shine your soul light. Spend a minute with it today. Give it some gratitude. Give it its props. Let it know that you're aware that it exists. And get out there and shine as only you can shine, even in the darkest of places. Know that sometimes you are the one to flip on the light the place up. And sometimes you're the one who has to be strong enough to love and shine your light from afar. Blessings be, everybody. Have a beautiful day.